Good afternoon. My name is Sasha Ruane Borges-Ho. I'm a psychology associate with the Student Counseling Services at Iowa State University. I use she, her pronouns. I'm really excited today to be able to present to you some healthy habits that you can practice during COVID-19, and really during any period of time when you might be experiencing additional stress or any time that you might be finding that you're losing rhythm or structure in your day. So we're going to go over some things here today that you probably heard before, but I'm really glad that you could join us or that you are able to watch this workshop after it's been recorded. Our intention is to have a whole series actually this semester for the summer 2020 semester, a whole series of workshops. I'll go into that in just a few moments. So every Wednesday, 1 p.m. during this semester, we're going to have different presenters and different workshops that you can then watch at other times. Or you can watch live if you prefer. So let's just jump right into it. You may see me at times kind of looking up to this corner here. I've got a second screen to kind of help me keep all my tech organized. So that's what I'm doing when I'm looking over in that direction. Hopefully we won't run into too many tech problems. Once in a while I run into an error where I might have left a window open, or I get music running in the background that I might have been listening to when I was trying to do some work. But let's get into it. Okay, so today's workshop is really going to be focused on what some common responses are during this period of time of COVID-19 and social distancing. We're going to be thinking about and talking a little bit about some strategies that you can use to incorporate healthy habits during this period of time, but also healthy habits you can incorporate at any other time in your life. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about specifically are going to be things like balanced eating, staying active, sleep hygiene, and creating structure in your day. Just at a glance, some of the workshops that we're going to be offering and topics that we're going to be exploring this semester are going to include things like substance use, practicing self-compassion, dealing with anxious thoughts or what we call intrusive thoughts, living with other people during this period of time while we're socially distancing, as well as how do we cope with painful emotions when we are living with people who may be disaffirming to our identities or disaffirming of our experiences. And then finally, we've got an ACT workshop. ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Our very own Jeff Nelson is going to be presenting on that, and so I'll let him kind of describe that in a little more detail when that comes up. These are the dates, though, at the moment. The titles may change, but these are the topics, basically. So for today, healthy habits during COVID-19. So social distancing and just kind of navigating a pandemic has elicited a lot of different emotions and reactions for some people. For some people, the social distancing can feel like, opportunities to find creative ways of connecting with others. Maybe you've been doing a lot of video chatting, or maybe on FaceTime. Maybe you've been able to work or study from home, and that's actually felt good or pleasant. Maybe you've gotten into some hobbies or projects that you've been meaning to get to and just didn't have a chance to when you were working or studying away from home. So there could very possibly be, and it's not that uncommon, that there might be some pleasant parts of this. It's also really possible that you've been experiencing something more along these lines, where you've been feeling either really isolated, maybe you've been feeling like it's really hard to find any alone time, or life feels a little bit chaotic right now. Whether you're social distancing alone or social distancing with family or roommates, there can be a lot of different challenges that you could be facing right now. So the point is that whether you're having really pleasant emotions or unpleasant emotions, they're all normal. These are just a few of the reactions you might be having or experiences you might be having that feel a little bit more unpleasant. It can always feel a little bit easier to navigate having pleasant or enjoyable emotions or experiences, but when we're dealing with something that feels a little bit more uncomfortable or unpleasant, it's usually then that we start paying attention and saying that this is just really, really hard. So these are just some of the reactions you may have that are more unpleasant, that don't feel good, that feel uncomfortable. All of the reactions you're having, though, I guarantee are normal. I don't know that there are many of us who have experienced a global pandemic before. So this is new for a lot of us, and a global pandemic in this day and age where we have both access to technology that might help us stay connected, but also in a time when it's hard to be able to continue our routines when so much of our lives have been disrupted. You're having a normal reaction to abnormal events. So what are some ways that we can try and cope, knowing that there's a ton about this experience that we don't have control over? We don't have control over, how long we're going to be socially distancing. We don't really have control over when and if we're able to return to work or return to campus. We don't have a ton of control over how other people around us behave, or what decisions our local governments are making. We don't have a ton of control over that. There's a lot about this that we don't have control over. But we do have some control over how it is that we choose to establish a routine, a rhythm for ourselves day to day. The biggest part about this experience for a lot of people has been that their routine has been totally disrupted. So eating healthy, staying active, getting good sleep, and creating structure can be one way that we can do that. So let's start first with fueling your body. Fueling your body can be one of the most important healthy habits that you get into either during this time or that you get into at any time, really. Your body is doing so much for you throughout your day. Maybe it's helping you get from place to place. It's helping you digest. It's helping you concentrate. It's giving you energy. Your body is doing a lot for you in your day. It helps you do all the things that you enjoy doing, as well as the things that maybe you don't enjoy doing, but you have to do. So fueling your body right is really important, in part because of how much it impacts us. When our body has the nutrients that it needs, it can improve our immune functioning, it can improve our metabolism, it can improve our mood, our energy, it can improve our ability to learn, to attend to things that we're wanting to learn or pay attention to. It can improve our ability to recall memories. So if it's an exam that's coming up at the end of the semester or mid-semester, it's a really important thing that you're continuing to fuel your body so that your body is working at its best and that you can perform the way that you want to. So eating right, really, really important. But how do we do that? I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. So I want to put that out there. And we have excellent dietitians on campus. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of our presentation today. But some basic rules of thumb that can help you maintain a healthier diet, healthier habits around eating. One, eating your full 3 meals a day, making sure you have snacks, making sure that when you're eating mindfully, that you're doing one thing at a time. We'll talk a little bit more about mindful eating in just a moment, but mindfully eating basically means that we're paying attention to what we're eating, and we're paying attention to the experience, we're paying attention to the signs that our body is giving us. We also want to choose nutrient-dense foods that are high in the nutrients that we want, and we want to make sure that the foods that we're picking are actually foods that we enjoy. You may know that carrots are really good for you, but you don't really like carrots. Well, you can pick some other options. Maybe carrots aren't going to be the way that you are looking to get the nutrients that you need. Maybe there are other ways, or different food groups or different foods that you can choose from that might be a little bit more like what you enjoy. So making sure that when you are grocery shopping, if you're able to do that you're able to choose foods that you enjoy. Choosing foods from multiple food groups can be a really great way as well of making sure that you're getting nutrients that your body's needing, and making the experience of eating a social experience. Now, I say this knowing that we are socially distancing right now. Maybe you're socially distancing with family, maybe you're socially distancing with roommates, maybe you're socially distancing alone. Either way, there are ways that we can make eating a social experience, whether it is that we're sitting down to eat our meals together with our roommates or our families, whether we decide to video chat with our friends and family while we're eating. There are a lot of different ways that we can try and make this a social experience, even when we're limited in how we can make that a social experience. Ways that you can stay safe and limit your exposure pretty specifically during COVID-19 include planning ahead. Make sure that you've got a grocery list for yourself that accounts for meals for 5 days worth of food. And that way you're not spending as much time perhaps grocery shopping as you might typically. If you go in with a plan, with a list, that also means that you're going to be able to get the kinds of foods that not only you enjoy, but that you maybe are wanting to try, or maybe foods that you know you always like, but you always seem to forget to get them or you don't think about it. Ordering your groceries, whether for pickup or for delivery, depending on where you are, this might be an option for you. And if that is an option for you, that can be another way that you can limit your exposure to COVID-19 and limit others' exposure as well. I also want to acknowledge that not everybody has access to that kind of a resource or that kind of a service, and planning to shop for five days worth of meals can also be really challenging depending on kind of what your situation is right now. So I just want to acknowledge that while these are some suggestions, we also need to acknowledge where it is that we're at and what kind of resources we have available to us and when. I said that I would talk a little bit more about mindfully eating. Mindfully eating, as I said, is really paying attention and intentionally planning how we're eating. It involves, for example, instead of eating in front of the TV, or instead of just kind of trying to get through a meal as quickly as you can because you've got other things you've got to go and do, instead of just kind of making it a mundane experience, mindfully eating involves really investing in the experience of eating. So this includes things like taking the time to really taste what you're eating. This includes, taking your time with what you're eating as well, as opposed to kind of just, I got to scarf it down because I got another project to work on, or I have this other thing that I'm looking forward to. It's kind of like taking yourself out on a date to some degree. You want to take your time with your meal. Set the stage. Eat at a table, or set it up so that you have like a napkin and your cutlery at the table, and you've got maybe a placemat, or maybe you have a candle, or maybe you have some flowers at the table. Set it up so that it's really an enjoyable experience. And as you're actually eating, take your time with it. Take your time to taste what you're eating. Maybe it's food that you've prepared or someone has prepared for you. Take the time to enjoy it and to have some gratitude for what it is that you're eating, and to really enjoy the flavors that were put into it. It can also really help when we're paying attention closely to our body. Notice when your body is feeling full. Notice when your body is feeling hungry. Notice when your body is feeling satisfied. Maybe you're not feeling full to the point that you might burst, but maybe you're feeling really satisfied, and you can think to yourself or notice in yourself, like I'm actually feeling like I'm done with this meal for today, or for this meal for right now. Having the opportunity to try and take some deep breaths as well between bites, chewing slowly, trying to eat with your non-dominant hand. These can be some other ways that you can slow yourself down. If you're anything like me, sometimes I kind of just find myself like shoveling food into my mouth and just like wanting to really enjoy it because I'm really enjoying my food, but I'm also not taking the time to really enjoy it, and so I'm just eating quickly. But that can be really helpful as if you find some different ways of slowing it down. This page is actually a coloring page, and I'll have a link, or there is a link down in the description down below to this page so that you can actually print it out and color it yourself if you'd like to. I just really liked this image and wanted to use it. Another healthy habit is staying active. When we're socially distancing and we're needing to stay indoors or limit how often we're going out, when our resources like gyms and maybe we're working out with friends, maybe that you were taking classes, there can be a lot of reasons that right now staying active is really hard. But what we know about staying active is that even 20 minutes a day can deeply improve our functioning. It improves our energy levels. It can improve our mood. It's stress management. It helps the quality of our sleep because we're tiring ourselves out. And people who work out more often it's often associated with longevity and living longer because you're taking care of your body. So working out can be a really important part. And when I say working out, actually, I want to correct that. Being physically active. It doesn't have to be a workout with weights. It doesn't have to be a workout with equipment. but being physically active in some way, engaging with your body in a kinetic way, can be really, really important for your well-being. Here are some ideas about ways that you can stay active. One, set a schedule for yourself. Set a schedule for when you're going to find ways to bring in physical activity into your day. Find ways that moving that feel really good to you, that you enjoy. I often think about like the sentence, you've probably said this or heard this in your lifetime, I have to go to the gym or I have to work out. A good friend of mine many years ago said, you don't have to say I have to. I want to say I want to. I want to go to the gym. I want to work out. And it's a really small shift. That in and of itself doesn't necessarily make the physical activity that we've decided we're going to do the enjoyable part, but it can shift things. It can shift our frame of mind, our frame of reference for that. But picking activities that you enjoy to begin with can actually be a really good way of motivating yourself to stay active. So picking enjoyable activities, ways of moving that feel good to you. There's always ways that you can sneak a workout or sneak physical activity into your day. Maybe the next time you get up to go to the washroom, maybe instead of just walking over like you normally would, maybe you're going to lunge over. Maybe you can start a dance party, dance your way over to the fridge. There are a lot of different ways that we can try and stay active. Getting outside is another really great way of being active. Just going for a nice long walk can be a really good way of doing it. Taking frequent breaks from work that you have to do while seated. So maybe you're studying or working from home right now. Maybe you're sitting a lot. Maybe you're watching a lot of TV shows, or maybe you're gaming a lot more. Or maybe you're spending a lot of time on video chat. And very often we may be sitting during those activities. And so just take breaks. Take some frequent breaks. Once every hour for like 5-10 minutes. That can help you move your body a little bit. There's also a lot of digital resources out there right now. A lot of gyms and individual trainers have made some of their resources available for free, but there's also a lot of resources that have always been free online, and so that's something to look into. If you ever had something like a heart rate monitor or ever had like a workout tracking device of some kind, it might be a really good time to make use of it as a reminder to kind of keep track of how you're doing. I also wanted to just give you some ideas about ways that you can stay physically active, because sometimes it can feel a little bit hard to be like, okay, put physical activity into your day-to-day life. Well, sometimes I just want some concrete ideas. Go for a walk, go for a jog. Maybe you pick the scenic route on a walk or the scenic route on the way to the washroom. Maybe you do a little lap around your kitchen before you get to the next room that you need to go to. There are exercise videos online that can really be useful, that are totally free on YouTube, that can be great ways to get active. You can jump rope in place, do jumping jacks, do some yoga. You can walk up and down stairs. Find an active game that you can play with other people, whether it's roommates, whether it's from a distance that you're able to play catch with someone nearby or in your neighborhood. You can ride a bike, do some gardening or yard work. Tending to a plant or a plant can feel really nurturing and can feel really good. And it's often a lot of hard work because there's a lot of carrying of things that has to happen when you're gardening and tending to plants. I also just really like these gifs of people dancing in their homes because I think that it's really fun. And I think that's Sandra Oh in Grey's Anatomy, but I'm not 100% sure. I never watched that show. Sleep hygiene. So sleep is another one of those habits that you can develop and keep working on, whether it's during COVID or at another time. Sleep hygiene refers to kind of the neatness or tidiness of our habits and routines and practices around sleep. So this might be like your bedtime routine. This might be your environment where you're sleeping. This includes some of your choices of behavior or activity just before going to sleep. That's all part of sleep hygiene. The quality of the sleep that you're getting can really impact how you're functioning. It has a global impact. It can impact, again, and you'll notice that there's a theme here because this has shown up a lot. your attention and learning and memory recall. It impacts your mood. It can impact your energy levels, your motivation. You'll notice that a lot of these have been repeated, and there's a reason for that, is that so much of our functioning is really, really dependent on how our body is doing and how we're choosing to move or treat, fuel our body. That's why we're seeing kind of a repeated answers here about what these different practices and habits can impact. Our sleep can also impact things like our metabolism, our reaction time, and it can also impact our weight. The way that it impacts our weight is not a direct correlation. It impacts the production of different hormones in our body. For example, when we're not really getting great sleep, our cortisol levels usually rise, and cortisol is a kind of a stress response hormone, and one of the things that it does is that it stores energy in our body so that we can access that at another time, because during periods of stress we often need energy reserves. Of course, those energy reserves are body fat that maybe are things that you're wanting to work on or wanting to change. And so I just like to put that out there so that you can kind of think about your wellness as being a whole picture. You are a whole person, and your body and mind, really, they're all one thing. And so your functioning during this time and your functioning outside of COVID-19 is going to be really dependent on how your body is doing, how you're treating yourself, and the different practices and routines that you're getting into. Ways that you can improve your sleep hygiene. Stick to a sleep schedule. Just like with food, just like with activity, sticking to a schedule can be a really good way of making sure that you're meeting your goals, your healthy habit goals, meeting your goals around, raising energy levels, for example. So schedule can be really important. It can be really motivating, and it can also just give you a rhythm to your week, to your day. When you're in bed, make sure that you're tired. If you are laying awake in bed, it's probably a really good sign that you should get out of bed. Part of the reason for that is we want to make sure that we're associating bed with sleep. We don't want to associate bed with feeling, that you're having trouble falling asleep, that you're anxious about not falling asleep, that you're feeling frustrated that you're not tired yet, or that you're doing other things like your homework or browsing Twitter or something like that in bed. Avoiding substances like nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, avoiding substances like those before going to bed, about 4 to 6 hours before going to bed, can be another way to really strongly improve your sleep hygiene. All of those substances impact and interfere with your sleep. For example, stimulants will typically make it a lot harder for you to fall asleep, to stay asleep. But depressants like alcohol, while it might initially feel like it's helping you feel tired and fall asleep, what happens is that as your body is metabolizing it, it's actually interfering with the kind of sleep that you're able to get, and very often it ends up waking you up as it's being metabolized out of your system. So it actually is working against you, and the quality of your sleep with alcohol very often is worse than if it's without. Location matters. I kind of made reference to this before, but you want your bed to be a safe space for sleep. Sleep should take place in your bed. Try and avoid couch or the floor or other places that you wouldn't typically be sleeping, or if you've developed a habit of falling asleep on the couch, for example, or on the floor, or other places. What can often happen is that sleep can be disturbed as a result of that, and it can also just make it harder to fall asleep again in your own bed. Getting active earlier in the day can help the quality of your sleep because you're using your energy reserves in the day. You're using it in a way that's productive, that's good for your body, and it also means that you're kind of tired out for the end of the day. This sticks out to me right now because we adopted a puppy a few months ago, and tiring her out during the day has been a really important part of her wellness. It's making sure she's getting the stimulation that she needs, the exercise she needs, but also making sure that she's able to sleep really, really soundly and deeply overnight so that when she wakes up, her tail's wagging, she's really excited, she's ready for the next day, and that she can get that good night's sleep, because otherwise she'll not be tired enough to be able to sleep through it. Peaceful bedtime routines like practicing mindfulness or a meditation before bed can be a really great way to set the tone for the night. I'll have some resources again, as I said, at the end of the presentation and as well in our description. In the description just below the video, there's some resources there for like some meditations and strategies for keeping good sleep hygiene. You also want to avoid screen time before bed. I am the first person to admit that I am so guilty of this. I'm always browsing the internet on my phone before bed, and the way that I've tried to cope with that is by having a blue light filter on it. This is a bad idea, even with a blue light filter. What we're doing when we're either browsing something on our phone or on our laptops, or maybe we're watching TV when we're falling asleep or going to bed, what we're doing is that we're associating bed with these other activities, and that can interfere with our ability to fall asleep. And so what can happen is that while you might get yourself to bed at an hour that feels good for you, that would guarantee you, your 8 hours of sleep that night, if you're spending time doing other things kind of at the top of that time, then you might only end up getting about 6 or 7 hours of sleep. So really important that you have, that you kind of limit how it is that you're spending your time just before bed, and that you're limiting screen time specifically. You also want to limit your naps during the day. Naps can kind of disrupt our circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is basically our body's sleep-wake cycle. And so when we take naps, we're messing with that circadian rhythm. We're getting some rest during the day. That means by evening, we may not have as much need for rest. And it doesn't mean that you don't actually need to sleep, but that it might make it harder for your body to get back into sleep mode, to get the restorative sleep that you're really needing. If you need to nap, try and keep it short. I'm, again, super guilty of naps that far exceed what a nap should be. But a nap really should only be about 20 to 30 minutes. And if it exceeds that, what ends up happening is that you start going into a deeper sleep. And that, A, is harder to wake up from. B, when we don't get the full cycle of REM sleep, then it actually, we wake up a lot more tired. So limiting the duration of those naps can be really important. Next topic is about creating a structure in our day. We have been circling this the entire time. You'll notice that I've been talking about having a schedule, having a plan, eating 3 meals a day and having those times be roughly consistent, planning your physical activity, having a schedule around sleep, and having, the same bedtime each day, or roughly the same bedtime and wake time. We've been circling this, and having structure in your day can, in part, be about having a schedule where at certain times of day you're doing certain things, but it's also just about a rhythm. And what this does for us when we have a rhythm to our day or to our week is that we're helping create a sense of certainty, a sense of normalcy. It gives us a sense of meaning and gives our activity a sense of meaning. It also gives us a sense of belonging. This piece in particular might sound a little strange, but let me kind of put this into perspective for you. Maybe part of your identity and sense of belonging has to do with your identity as a student, or maybe it has to do with communities you belong to or work that you do. Right now, a lot of those roles have been really, really disrupted. So how connected do you feel to your various roles, your various identities, to communities and places where you feel like you belong? The answer to that question is very likely going to vary depending on which roles you're thinking about right now. And having a structure to your day where you're able to engage in those different roles and identities that feel really, really important to you can be a way of increasing our sense of belonging and our sense of meaning in our day. So structure, really important. Having structure and rhythm in our day can also reduce anxiety, reduce worry. It can set the tone either for the day or set the tone for your task at hand. It can increase your motivation, your productivity. It can free up time for you to be able to do other things that you really love doing. It can also increase our felt sense of control, especially right now where so much of our experience is really completely out of our control. Feeling like you've got control over some part of your experience, that you can create a structure that feels predictable and predictable in a way that feels good for you. This doesn't mean that it's inflexible or rigid, but it feels like a structure where you feel like, well, I've got this that I do in the mornings, and in the afternoon I do this, and then in the evenings I do this, and that feels really good and meaningful for me. Most importantly, and I've kind of made reference to this already, it allows us to really live into our values and live in a way that's consistent with those values. So as I said, we really have been circling this all along. It's when we are able to engage in important, meaningful, fulfilling, and valued activities that we feel most like ourselves. And this is something that a lot of people have been talking about during COVID-19 and social distancing, is not feeling like ourselves, not feeling the energy we usually feel, the passion, the excitement, the motivation that we usually feel. That's not uncommon. You're not alone in that experience. We're all kind of struggling with that. And part of the reason for that is that we're not able to engage in the activities that we normally would that feel meaningful and useful and help us feel connected with ourselves, connected with our roles, connected with our identity. So having structure in your day can be one of the most important ways that you can create an experience, a routine in your day that helps you feel like yourself and cope with COVID, but not just with COVID, cope with daily life. How do we add structure to our day? We've talked a little bit about this already. Scheduling our activities, whether that's physical activity, meals, sleep-wake routines. Having a schedule is a really important way to add structure. It's definitely not the only way, and I want to put that out there. I already mentioned this isn't about being rigid. We want to also incorporate some flexibility. Just because the clock says that it's 12 noon doesn't mean that your body is necessarily hungry at that moment and that you have to eat. And it might be an important cue for you to be thinking about, am I feeling hungry right now? What's my body needing right now? What have I already eaten today, and what could my body really use? Another way that you can create structure and rhythm is by making sure that you're keeping the activities that you have to do in your day kind of confined and boundaried to certain periods of the day. So for example, keeping work for work hours, play for play hours, school for school hours, etc. That can be a really good way of adding structure and rhythm to your days so that it feels predictable, it doesn't feel that it's all scattered, and it feels organized. Scheduling things like chores or tidying up and organizing sounds a little bit like just like a thing of daily living that you just kind of have to do, or maybe it feels like one of those things that you haven't been really able to do, or maybe it feels like that's all you've been doing. But scheduling things like organizing scheduling things like organizing, chores, tidying up, what that can really do is that not only are you making sure you're attending to just some activities of daily living that are important, but it also means that your environment is likely to be tidier, more organized. When our environment is tidier, more organized, it can feel a lot easier to organize ourselves internally, to organize our day, to organize our tasks, and move between tasks. Another strategy for creating some structure and rhythm in your day is by actually identifying what are those values. Talked about this. So having some structure in your day means that you can live your values and engage in activities that feel meaningful and valuable. Well, what if you don't know what your values are? Or what if you're not totally clear on what those are? Identifying what your values are can make it a lot easier to then engage in activities, in projects, and behaviors that feel consistent with those values. We'll talk a little bit more about that soon. Another part of creating structure and rhythm in your day is making sure that you're also making time for maintaining your social connections. This isn't just important for our sense of a belonging and making sure that we still feel connected to those roles that feel important to us. This is also really important just to maintain our social well-being. Social well-being is kind of a part of our whole well-being. We as people are social creatures, and when we feel connected, when we feel a sense of belonging, when we feel a sense of being affirmed and valued and validated by other people, we feel better about ourselves. It's often when we're lacking connection or when we're finding ourselves really isolated that our self-critical voice gets really loud. So this is really good for our mental health. It's really good for our overall well-being that we're continuing to maintain our connections. It's going to look different, and I'm sure you've already noticed it looks really different right now during social distancing. And it doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we can still connect or that suddenly that has lost its value or importance in your life. Limiting our media diet based on how much energy the particular media takes from us or gives to us is going to be a really important piece of your self-care and adding structure and rhythm to your day. I've been guilty of this myself. Sometimes we get lost in some kind of media, whether that's news, whether that's a television show, whether that's Twitter, whether that's look, I don't know all the social media platforms, and many of them feel like a mystery to me, but whatever the social media platform or type of media it is that you're consuming, sometimes we can get lost and we go down a rabbit hole with our social media. You know, what might have started as like a 5-minute article that you were reading suddenly turns into 2 hours of continuing to read or continuing to consume media that is either draining, or is taking from us energies that we would perhaps prefer to give to something else, even if it's not draining us. Sometimes social media can be really, really useful and important, especially now. It might be how you're staying in touch with people. But what's really important is that you just try and make a distinction. As you're engaging with social media, even a given platform or a given type of media, let's take the news, for example, even a type of media or a given platform can be both energy giving and draining, depending on how much time you're spending on it, how you're feeling about how you're engaging with that media, and what else is kind of weighing on you and how you're doing in that time. So it's just something to think about. Is this giving me energy? Is this something I care about, something I'm feeling passionate about? Or is this now starting to drain energy from me and I actually want to put this energy towards something else? Finally, adding structure and rhythm to your day is difficult. You've never had to do this in this kind of an environment, in this kind of a challenging sort of global crisis where all of those typical spaces, communities, and roles that might have previously given you some kind of structure and rhythm, you've never had to do this when all of those were gone or when all of those were no longer accessible to you. So what you're trying to do right now, what you've been trying to do for the past 2 months is really hard and you've never needed to before. So you're not going to get it right the first time, or at least it's not likely. And it's okay because we're human and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to falter and we're going to set goals and then realize, oh, I don't know if those are the right goals for me, or maybe I can't do everything all at once, or maybe I'm not achieving the goal I really want to achieve. Be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. You know, as I said, that self-critical voice might be really, really loud right now. And it's just as important a time as ever to talk back to that voice, to challenge that voice, to remind yourself that you're only human, you've never had to do this before, and that you're learning a new skill. You're learning how to create structure when the typical resources for structure are not really accessible right now. So being kind with yourself is going to be really important as you're trying to figure out what's my rhythm now. Maybe you're refiguring it out because the things are always changing. So I also realize that this has been 2 months of this, that you've been navigating this, and that it's probably looked really different week 1 versus now. As mentioned, here are a few resources. The links look a little bit different in the description because I put the full links in the descriptions as opposed to just sort of the organizational links. But they're all the same links, all the same resources. For balanced eating, We have some resources on campus. Our dietitians, Kallen and Lisa Nolting, are able to provide you with consultation and work with you to help you reach your health and nutrition goals, whatever those might be. They can help provide information about how to best fuel your body, how to reach fitness goals. They can work with you, whether it's around eating concerns. So you can always reach out to them. You can find their contact information in the ISU directory. You can also find their information on the ISU Health and Wellness page or the Teal Student Health Center page as well. The American Society for Nutrition has some really great resources on that website. Also the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. There's some information there as well about how you can eat right, what kinds of foods might be useful as, protein fuel or carb fuel or, all that kind of stuff that, again, as I mentioned, I'm not a dietitian, and so I certainly don't want to kind of speak for them, but lots of information you can find in those websites. For staying active, there's some really great information at the American College of Sports Medicine, as well as Exercise is Medicine, which is a project from the American College of Sports Medicine, but I really liked that website. There was a lot of information there. This is not an exhaustive list. There are tons of other resources out there available as well. But these are just some. These are just some resources that are available out there that really spoke to me in any case and that I wanted to share with you. You'll notice if you check out the Rhythms of Play website under Creating Structure and Rhythm, that's actually a parenting site, weirdly, or weirdly insofar as that wasn't what I was looking for when I came upon it. But there's some really great concrete suggestions about ways to incorporate rhythm into your day that felt like it was speaking to not only parents, but really just to anyone. So just fair warning if you check out that website that I am aware that it's meant to be a parenting website, and yet I really didn't find other resources that kind of outlined it in a really nice, concrete, accessible way in the way that they did. So I really appreciated that from them. In the meantime, y'all, tune back in next Wednesday at 1 p.m. We're going to have our very own clinical therapist, Sydney Dunn, doing a workshop for us on substance use and some harm reduction skills and ways that you can recognize if maybe you're experiencing or someone you live with is experiencing some difficulty around substance use. There's been a lot of memes and talk about substance use since COVID hit in some ways that might have been helpful and a lot of ways that haven't been helpful. So we thought it was a really important topic for us to address and talk about. In the meantime, stay tuned on this channel. We have many other things that are going to be showing up on our website. I'll leave the resources up. A lot of other, skills corners that are likely to pop up. We have a lot of skills corners already up. Skills corners are quick videos, max 10 minutes. On the shortest end, I think it was like 1 minute, where we have various therapists kind of talking a little bit about different skills you can incorporate into your life as you are managing the current situation. I will leave you with that. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this useful. We will see you next week. And in the meantime, stay well, stay safe.